It's hard to ignore what just happened in Australia, because whether you are a supporter or critic, the reaction has been louder in its silence than in its noise. Harry and Meghan arrived with global attention already waiting for them, as it always does, but what unfolded this time didn't match the expectations many people had set. There were no overwhelming scenes of mass excitement, no chaotic crowds rushing in, no clear sense of the kind of public energy that usually follows figures of this scale. Instead, what started circulating online was something different. Footage, clips, and images that people began analyzing far more closely than anyone expected. From the very beginning of the visit, everything was under a microscope. Every appearance, every venue, every moment captured on camera was being shared and reshared across social media platforms within minutes. And once that happens, perception stops belonging to the event itself and starts belonging to the audience watching it. Some viewers pointed to smaller than expected crowds at certain appearances. Others argued that the framing of footage was selective, and many simply compared what they were seeing now to what they remembered from previous visits years ago. That comparison became the center of the entire conversation. One of the most talked about moments was a high-profile luxury retreat held in Sydney, presented as an exclusive experience focused on empowerment, inspiration, and personal development. On paper, it was positioned as a premium event with limited access and high-value engagement. But once images and discussion started spreading online, the focus shifted away from the content and moved towards expectations versus perception. The price point alone became a talking factor, and from there the discussion expanded far beyond the event itself. Social media users began breaking down everything they could find. Short clips were slowed down, screenshots were analyzed, and every detail was debated by different audiences with completely different interpretations. Supporters insisted that the experience was being misunderstood, that context mattered, and that premium events naturally operate in a different way. Critics, however, focused on value, turnout perception, and whether the reality matched what had been promised. And in the middle of all of this, the actual message of the event became secondary to the narrative forming around it. If you're still watching at this point, take a second to subscribe, because we break down stories like this in a way that goes beyond headlines and gets into what people are actually reacting to. As the visit continued, the same pattern repeated itself. Public appearances were shared online in short clips, often detached from full context, and each one was interpreted in multiple different ways. Some saw evidence of declining public engagement, while others pointed out how easily social media can distort reality by focusing only on selected angles. But regardless of interpretation, one thing was clear: every moment was being watched, recorded, and judged in real time. At the same time, a wider discussion started growing around modern celebrity culture and personal branding. In today's world, public appearances are no longer just appearances. They are content, they are messaging, they are branding opportunities, and sometimes even commercial extensions of a personal identity. Critics argued that this creates confusion between authenticity and promotion, while supporters pointed out that public figures now operate in a completely different media environment than they did a decade ago. That tension became part of the larger story. But perhaps the most interesting shift wasn't about events or appearances at all. It was about reaction. Because when you look closely at the overall response online, it isn't just anger or support that stands out anymore. It's something quieter, something less emotional, a kind of detachment. People still watch, still comment, still share, but the intensity feels different. And in today's attention economy, that shift matters more than most people realize. There were also moments from the trip that unexpectedly went viral, not because they were planned, but because they were small, brief, and open to interpretation. A short interaction here, a background moment there, a clip taken out of context and suddenly turned into a talking point. Whether those moments actually meant anything is difficult to say, but what is clear is that audiences now construct meaning faster than ever before. The story is no longer just what happens, it's what people believe is happening. Comparisons with earlier visits also resurfaced naturally. Older footage showing larger, more energetic crowds was circulated alongside recent clips, creating a visual contrast that fueled even more debate. For some, this was proof that public interest has changed over time. For others, it was simply a reminder that memory, media selection, and context all shape perception in powerful ways. Both arguments continued to circulate, and neither completely dominated the conversation. Away from the immediate events, broader narratives about family relationships and long-standing tensions also reappeared in commentary. These discussions have followed Harry and Meghan for years, and every new appearance seems to get filtered through that same lens. Whether fair or not, public figures rarely get viewed in isolation once a narrative is formed around them. In the end, what stands out most from this Australia visit isn't one specific moment or one headline. It's the accumulation of perception. Every clip, every reaction, every comparison layered on top of each other until the story became larger than the events themselves. And that is where things become interesting, because perception is powerful, but it is also unstable. It can grow quickly, spread widely, and shift just as fast. In a world driven by attention, visibility is not enough anymore. Being seen doesn't guarantee being understood, and being talked about doesn't always mean being supported. Sometimes, the loudest signal is not noise, it's distance. And distance is far harder to measure, and even harder to reverse. And that leaves a final question hanging over everything that happened in Australia. When attention remains but emotional connection fades, what does it actually mean for public figures who depend on both? That is a real conversation this trip has started, and it is one that is not going away anytime soon.